A very good morning, students. Welcome back to online session on programming for problem solving. In our previous session, we started the concept of algorithm. We defined the term algorithm and we have also seen the characteristics of an algorithm. And then we have discussed the generalized example of making tea. And after that, we have seen the different categories of algorithmic operations, that is sequential, then conditional, question based, then iterative. We basically divided these algorithmic operations into three different categories. By default, we said all the steps in your algorithm, they will be considered or they will be executed sequentially, one after the other. They will be executed sequentially. So if you are keeping only sequential steps inside your algorithm, all those steps will be considered one after the other without any skipping of the step as well as without any repetition of the steps. If you're writing one step, it will not be repeated unless and until you use any other category of algorithmic operation. So if you're using only sequential algorithmic operation, then all these steps will be executed or all these steps will be considered in a sequential way. So in order to have the alteration or in order to have the change in that consideration, what we are doing, we are going for other algorithmic operations. Those are nothing but your what we call conditional, selection based, question based, and finally the iterative uh, algorithmic operation. So for your understanding, quickly we go to that slide so that you will have the clarity. So this program development we started, and in that understanding the problem we have completed, developing the solution we have started. Yeah, I will just take the marker over here. Okay, so understanding the problem we are done with, and then developing the solution we just started, and in that we have discussed structure charts, and now we are discussing about these algorithms, isn't it? These algorithms. So why we have kept algorithm pseudocode in a single step means because they are closely related to each other. They are different concepts, they are different topics, but they are closely related to each other. So that is the reason why I kept these two things inside a single point. So now we are discussing algorithms. After that we'll discuss pseudocodes. Okay, so algorithms we have discussed, yeah, definitions. Okay, then characteristics, example of making T algorithm, then the categories of algorithms we started, and in that the select sequential operations, the see over here categories of an algorithmic operation. So in that sequential we discussed conditional, selection based, question based, all these things we discussed, and iterative also we discussed. So what we said, if you're not using any of the control structure, we said these two are our control structures, isn't it? The last two things are our control structures. We call them as control structures. If you are not using any control structures, then what will happen? All your sequential operations, they will be executed sequentially, isn't it? They will be executed sequentially without any skipping as well as without any repetition of the execution of a statement. They will be considered, they will be executed sequentially, one after the other. They will be executed sequentially. But if we go for these control structures, then there is an alteration in your algorithmic consideration. So here, yeah, I have given an idea how we are going to put sequential. So these are our sequential assignment, input output, these are our sequential statements. So these are our control structures, these are our control structures. So sequential statements, control structures, how we put inside our algorithm we discussed. So then, yeah, why, how to use an algorithm, already I told you the usage or the importance of an algorithm. Many times we discussed this one. So the next thing, how to write an algorithm, this also we discussed. Then the examples, algorithmic examples we started, and in that the first one we discussed. See, design an algorithm to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and to find the remainder of two numbers and display the result. So this is our problem statement. So to this problem statement, how we have written the algorithm in our yesterday's class we have seen, isn't it? So first and last steps in your algorithm will be the start and stop, and in between the complete processing we have to write. So before proceeding into your algorithm, the first step will be we have to collect all the required stuff. The first step will be the input to your algorithm. So in order to do the input, we have to declare the memory locations, and in that memory locations we have to read the values, and then we have to perform the operation, and finally after performing the operation we have to print the result on the output screen, isn't it? So this complete algorithm over here like this we discussed, isn't it? The first and last steps, as you can see, the start and stop, then declaring the variables or declaring the memory locations, because inside your computer, whenever you are giving the values to the computer for calculation, it has to remember those values, isn't it? Like a human being. A human being also does the same thing. Whenever you are giving some values to for calculation to a human being, what he will do? He will remember those values inside his memory, isn't it? If I am giving you 10, 20 and I'm asking you to add them, when I'm giving 10, what you're doing? You're simply grasping the 10 and you're remembering the 10 inside your memory. And then again, when I'm giving 20, you're doing the same. You're remembering the 20 as well. Then what you're doing? You're adding the 10 plus 20 and giving the result as an output to me, as a final value to me. Isn't it? The same thing the computer will do. Whenever you are giving a value to a computer, okay, an input value to a computer, what it will do? It will remember that value. And how it will remember? In the sense, it will store that value inside its memory. For that storage purpose, what we have to do? We have to dedicate some memory location. That's what we are doing when you are declaring the memory locations. So what you are doing? You are dedicating some portion of the computer memory to store your values. So over here, how many memory locations I am dedicating? 3 memory locations. Number 1, number 2, and finally to calculate the sum, I am taking the third variable, sum variable. So now what I am doing, after dedicating the memory locations, after declaring the memory locations, I am reading the values of two numbers. That is num1, num2. I am reading. Over here, what statement I am using? Input. So the generalized statements we said we are going to use inside your algorithm, and whenever we are performing the input operation, you can use any of these things, isn't it? You can put get, you can put input, you can put enter, you can put read. Okay, so likewise, so here we are reading the values from the keyboard or from a file. So we are saying input num1, num2. So let us assume I have given the num1 value as 10 and num2 value as 20. So finally here 10 will come, here 20 will come, and your sum will become what? We are performing the addition operation. So sum will become 30. So that 30, what we are doing? We are printing. So printing in the sense, on the output screen we are expecting the result. The result will be inside sum. So sum is 30. So that 30 you will get on the output screen. In that way, the algorithm will process all these statements. So first, start the algorithm, dedicate the memory locations, read the values inside the memory locations, perform the operation, print the result, stop. In this way, we do the algorithm. So we said we have to perform add as well as subtract, multiply, all these operations, isn't it? So now we performed add. So subtraction, it is very simple. Just you replace this plus sign with minus sign. And moreover, in place, because we said we are performing addition, so we have taken an identifier and name sum over here. But when you perform the subtraction, what you have to do? Take SUB, subtraction. Okay, same for multiplication, you have to take MUL. For division, DIV. Okay, for modulo division, MOD, that is the remainder. Okay, MOD. Likewise, you have to take the names. So here, according to your operation, you have to change the symbol. You have to change the symbol of your operation. That is nothing but the operator you have to change over here. Plus for addition we are using, minus for subtraction, multiplication, asterisk symbol, star symbol will be using. This is for multiplication. Then for division, this. Okay. We call it as forward slash. Okay. In computer terminology, we call this as forward slash. We have to use forward slash for division operation. Then for modulo division, we use this symbol. Percentile symbol will be having now on the keyboard. That symbol you use to get the remainder of division operation, to get the modulo division operation. Okay. So likewise, all these operators you can use to perform all these operations. See, add operation plus symbol plus operator, subtraction operation minus operator, multiplication asterisk, division forward slash, and to find the remainder we use modulo division. To find the remainder, what operator we are using? Modulo division. Likewise, the percentile symbol. So all these operations you can perform when you have the clarity on addition. So if you know the addition, that means if you know the algorithm for addition, you can simply write the algorithm for all remaining operations. It is very easy, isn't it? Write one more algorithm to perform the subtraction, another for multiplication, another for division, another for modulo division. I have given an idea over here how you can perform all those operations. So we'll go to the next example for algorithm, for writing algorithm. So that is, design an algorithm to calculate the interest of a bank deposit. So we are depositing some amount inside a bank, and we are expecting your program to calculate the interest, isn't it? To calculate the interest. So interest to calculate, we use a formula PTR divided by 100, isn't it? PTR divided by 100. That same formula we use over here, PTR divided with 100. So what is P over here? Yeah, the actual amount, isn't it? Actual amount. So simply we take it as a variable with name amount. Okay. Then T stands for time. So basically the time we give in years. So year. Then rate of interest, isn't it? We have to take another variable, rate of interest, that is R. So likewise, if you give these three variables in your to your algorithm as an input, it has to give the interest of your bank deposit. So how we write the algorithm now? I'm going to my whiteboard. So see over here. So what we are doing? Yes, we are writing an algorithm to find the interest. Is it visible to you? Hopefully. A bit more, I will zoom like this. Okay. Interest of a bank deposit. Bank deposit. So some amount I have deposited in a bank, and I want after 2 years how much interest I will get. Okay, how much interest to my bank deposit I will get. That to calculate we will be using PTR by 100 formula. Okay, so the first step in our algorithm, as usual, we set the start. We'll start the algorithm. Then step 2 will be, what step 2 will be? We have to declare the variables. Okay, declare the memory locations. So that is declare. We said we need amount, we need time, that is nothing but your years, number of years. Then we need what? Finally the rate of interest. So likewise we have to declare, and after rate of interest we need another variable because when we after getting all these things, when we perform the operation, what we get as an output, we get the interest, how much interest we will get. So that I am taking as the last variable. Okay, so step 3, After declaring the memory locations, we have to read the values inside those memory locations. So input, how much amount is there, for how many years, and what is rate of interest. These three things we are reading from the user. So next, after reading those things, what we have to do, we have to calculate the interest, isn't it? So interest equals to amount multiplied with years multiplied with, yeah, you take it as years, number of years, not a single year, years. Okay, so years, here also we have to modify, yeah, wherever we have that years we have to modify. So the control C, here also we need to modify, and here also we need to modify, likewise years. So then years multiplied with what is rate of interest. Okay, rate. So this will give you the calculated interest for, let us say, amount you have given some 2000 rupees, and number of years you have given for 5 years, and rate of interest is some 10%. That is nothing but zero point 0.1, likewise, isn't it? So how the values we will get, I mean how much interest we will get means, yeah, you will get according to the calculation. Okay, so step 5, after having the rate of, I mean after having the interest calculated, what you have to do, print that interest on the output screen. Print interest. Then after printing the interest, our job is done, isn't it? We need to know the interest that we know right now. So next, the last step will be stop. That's it. Okay, this algorithm we have to follow in order to calculate the bank deposit. Okay, in your computer, how we are going to calculate, I mean how we are going to write the program means based on these steps we write. So accordingly we have to write a program. I mean at this stage we are discussing only the algorithms. At the next stage we'll discuss pseudocodes, then flowcharts we discuss, and finally the program. So after algorithm, pseudocode, flowchart, then program. So whatever I have written inside an algorithm, I will convert that algorithm into pseudocode, and then that pseudocode will be converted to flowchart, and that flowchart will be converted to program, likewise. Okay, so this is the algorithm to find the interest of a bank deposit. To find the interest of a bank deposit is very simple to understand. Just the first and last steps are start and stop, and then the second step is we have to take all the required stuff, that basically we need memory locations in order to store our values. So that memory locations we are declaring, okay, according to our requirement or according to our problem statement. So next thing is we have to take the values from the user, and we are reading those values inside our memory locations. Then we are calculating the interest based on the values supplied by the end user. Then finally we are printing the interest, and then we are stopping. So many people will get a doubt, sir, why we are not getting any output, why we are not executing this one, and why we are not seeing the output, or basically why we are not seeing this algorithm under processing. Because as I said, algorithm we are writing in our normal language. We are not following any programming language to write the algorithm. And in reality, when you write an algorithm, there is no compiler, there is no executor, there is no loader, runner program to run your algorithm and to give the output for us. Algorithm, why we are writing means just for our understanding. Just for our understanding, we are writing the algorithm, isn't it? Similarly, take the example when what I have given in my previous previous lecture. So we assumed a customer is having a land, and he wants a building to be constructed on that land. So he is visiting a civil engineer. So what the civil engineer will do? The civil engineer will design a plan for after taking the requirements from the customer. So as an output, is he giving the algorithm or the final product building he is giving? Of course, he's giving the building, isn't it? So, but in the construction process, he designed that plan for his understanding, isn't it? For his understanding as well as the for understanding of the construction workers. He designed that plan to make everybody in the domain, to give clarity to everybody in the domain. So that is the reason why he designed that plan. So here also we are doing the same thing. Algorithms, pseudocode, flowcharts. Why we are doing means to give the more clarity to all the working people in our project. Okay, when we are designing a very big project in an organization, many people will get involved in that project, isn't it? In that development process. So when more people are involved, there may be a confusion. What steps we have to follow, where to start, where to end. There may be a lot of confusion. To avoid that confusion only, we are going for these planning stage. Under this planning stage, we are having your algorithms, your pseudocode, your flowcharts. So whenever a particular person will get some confusion in the development process, what he will do? He will visit all these things. He will come and he will visit what the algorithm says, what the requirements are saying, what the algorithm is saying, what the pseudocode is saying, and what the flowchart is saying. After reading all these things, he will get the clarity. He will get rid of that confusion, and again he will go back to his work. Hope you understood the stuff. This algorithm, flowchart, pseudocode, we are not, we are not planning for the output purpose. They are just to give the clarity on the program, how we do the development process, how we exactly code our programs, code our application. So to have an idea, to have a clarity, we are going for these algorithms, pseudocode and flowchart. So hopefully you understood this second example of our algorithm. Then we'll go to our PPT and we see what we have over there. Yes, this is the algorithm. Just now I wrote over there. Then problem statement number 3. Okay, another problem statement we are considering, and design an algorithm to determine whether the temperature is below or above the freezing point. See, whatever algorithms we are discussing over here, they are very, very important. I'm telling you. They are very, very important. So you need to have a clarity on these algorithms. You need to have a perfection on these algorithms. Not only these algorithms, and after this, whatever we are going to discuss, you should be in a position to write an algorithm if I give a random problem statement to you. Whatever random problem statement I am giving, you should be in a position to write the algorithm for that one, just by knowing the logic. Just by knowing the logic, you should be able to write the algorithm. Okay, hopefully we'll come across all these hurdles and will become masters in these things. Okay, so what we have to do, we have to design an algorithm to determine whether the temperature, whatever room temperature or whatever current area temperature we are reading, we have to determine whether that temperature is above the freezing point and or below the freezing point. So what is our freezing point? In the sense 32 degree Fahrenheit. So if the temperature is below 32 degree Fahrenheit, we'll call it as the temperature is below the freezing point. If the temperature is above 32 degree Fahrenheit, then we call it the temperature is above the freezing point. Hopefully you understood. What is our freezing point? The freezing point is 32 degree Fahrenheit. So simply what we have to do, we have to check whether the temperature is above the freezing point or below the freezing point. So for this, what I have to do, yeah, I need to take, first of all, I have to read the current temperature. What current temperature the user is giving. That temperature I have to read in my algorithm. So for reading that one, I need a memory location. Isn't it? I need a memory location because I want the computer to remember that value. Whatever current temperature value I am giving, that temperature value the computer has to remember. How it will remember? By storing that value in its memory, it will remember. So what I have to do, I have to dedicate a memory location so that the computer will read that value and remember that value. Hopefully you understood. So that memory location, I am giving a name temperature. So TEMP. First 4 letters in that word temperature I am taking TEMP. So in this TEMP, I am going to store the current temperature. So if that current temperature is less than 32 degree, less than 30, the degree Fahrenheit no need to mention. Okay. If that temperature is below 32 degree, then what we have to do? We have to print. What we have to print? Yeah, that same statement. Temperature is above the freezing point. Okay, temperature is, no, less than we are saying now, so below the freezing point. If temperature is below 32 degree, then print temperature is below the freezing point. Below the freezing point, FP I am writing over here. Then if this is not the case, so right now by doing like this, what I am doing, okay, I am framing a question over here. I am framing a question, or I am giving a condition over here. I am giving a condition over here. So if this condition is true, then immediately the true part will be evaluated. If this condition is false, then the false part will be evaluated. So we'll write the algorithm, there you will get the clarity. So here, yeah, into this one, yeah, in this one only. So just go up. Yeah, here I will write another algorithm. Yes. So what algorithm we are writing? Algorithm to determine the temperature is above or below the freezing point. Freezing point. And what is that freezing point? 32 degree Fahrenheit. So simply we have to check whether our temperature is below the freezing point or above the freezing point. So what I have to do, yeah, in my algorithm I'm narrating the steps. The step 1 will be, we have to start, isn't it? We have to start. Then step 2 will be, yeah, we have to declare only one variable, isn't it? Temperature. Okay. Then step 3, read the current temperature. Step 3, read or input. Read temp. After reading the temperature, yeah, we can use read, input, get, okay, like whatever words you want. All that word count, I mean, what words you can use, that I already have given the clarity over here. When you are reading something inside an algorithm, when you are taking the input inside an algorithm, all these words you can use. Get, enter, read, input. Likewise, you can use any of these words. So as I'm reading the value, I took the word read over there. So next thing, step 4. What I'm doing in step 4? Yeah, check the condition. If condition I have already given now over here. See, if followed by condition, this thing. If followed by condition we have to put. If followed by condition we have to put. If that condition is true, then the immediate subroutine or immediate statement will be evaluated. If this condition is true, then the immediate statement subroutine will be evaluated. If this condition is false, then the else part will be evaluated. Okay, then what will happen? The else part will be evaluated. This subroutine will be evaluated. Hope you understood. If this is true, the immediate subroutine. If this is false, then the else part. So what happens with the else part? When the condition is true, it will be skipped. What happens with the else part? So I told you now on that day, this is your false block. This is your false block and this is your true block. This is your true block. Whenever the condition is true, only the true block will be evaluated. Only the true block will be evaluated. If the condition is false, the true block will be skipped and false block will be evaluated. Hopefully you understood. If the condition is true, only the true block will be evaluated and false block will be skipped. The false block will be skipped. And if the condition is false, whatever condition you are giving, if the condition is false, then the true block will be skipped and only the false block will be evaluated. Only the false block will be evaluated. So the same thing will do over here. After if, what I have to do? I have to keep the condition. So my condition is check whether temperature is greater than or lesser than 32 or not. if the temperature value is lesser than 32, then what we have to do? Yeah, simply you have to print. Simply what you have to do here, yeah, here, actually I want my cursor, okay, I will take another one. So what we have to do, if my temperature is lesser than 32, then print, what we have to print? Print uh, temperature is below the freezing point. Freezing point. Close it. So likewise. So in case, so like this we are doing. In case if this particular condition, what if, yeah, I will first I will write the complete algorithm, then I will give the clarity to you people. So the next thing what we have to do, we have to write the else part. We have to write the else part, that is false block, isn't it? False block. So else part I'm writing over here. So what we said, what should be there in the else block? Yeah, inside the else block, again I'm writing one more statement, that is print temperature is above the freezing point. Above the freezing point. So likewise. So put this statement over here. Like this. So after that, my last statement, last step, which is step 5, what I am doing in step 5, simply stop. That's it. So like this, we have to write the algorithm to check whether the temperature is above the freezing point or below the freezing point. So right now what I am doing, I am taking the markers over here. So see, so let us assume the input to this algorithm, let us assume I am giving the value of this temp, the value, the exact value of the temp as, so let us assume I'm giving the value of temp as some 70, like this, 70. So whatever input we are giving, that will be in degree Fahrenheit only. Will not go with that units specifically. We not give that units specifically. If you want, you can give, but it is a very difficult job. So at the beginning stage, we'll do like this only. Okay. So temperature, we are reading like 70 degree Fahrenheit. So now what will happen? Yeah. First, the algorithm will start. Then it will declare the memory location temp that we have already done. Then read temperature value, temp value that we are doing over here. We are giving 70 as the value. Then this particular statement, because all these statements will be executed sequentially. So now here we have the control structure. This if block is my control structure. Isn't it? We said, already we discussed, see over here. This if block, if else block is my control structure. So as we have the control structure, the alteration will be done. Whatever control is coming sequentially till this point, the control came sequentially. But when it sees this conditional statement, control structure, definitely the sequential processing will differ. Sequential processing will be altered. How it will be altered? Now you see. So if temperature value is less than 32. If temperature value is less than 32. So what is my temp value? Temp value is 70. Is it less than 32? So what this condition will generate over here? So 70 lesser than 32. Isn't it? The meaning of this one is 70 lesser than 32. Is it a true statement or false statement? Is it a true statement or false statement? Yes, it is a false statement. 70 lesser than 32 means it is a false statement. Isn't it? It is a false statement. So this will return false. This condition will return false. So immediately what will happen? Yeah, this is your true block. This is your true block. True block. And this is your false block. This is your false block. Whatever we put inside else, that will be your false block, and whatever we put inside if, that will be your true block. So when your condition becomes false, then what will happen? Only the false block will be evaluated and the true block will be skipped, isn't it? Only the false block will be evaluated and true block will be skipped. So what output you will get from this one? What will be the output from this one? Means, yeah, you will get this particular statement on the output screen. Temperature is above the freezing point. Temperature is above the freezing point. Like this you will get the statement. Temperature is above the freezing point. FP, freezing point. I'm not writing the complete thing. Simply I'm writing FP, freezing point. Hope you understood this one. So here the true block is skipped because the condition is giving false. So that is the reason why only false block is executing and the true block gets skipped. Hopefully you understood. So till this point, the execution is sequential. It has considered this statement, it has considered this, it has considered this, then it has considered this. Because as this is a conditional statement, question based statements, and your question is giving the false answer, it is skipping this one. It is skipping the true statement. So in this way, the control will jump from here to here. It will jump from here to here. And then it will continue like this. So in between, whatever we have, that will be skipped. Hopefully you understood. So this understanding is very, very, very important. This control structure, how it is processing the statements, whenever the condition is true, only the true block is executing and false block is skipping. And whenever the condition is false, the true block gets skipped and the false block will be considered. This you have to understand and you have to remember. So the next thing, quickly, we'll go to the slides and we'll see what we have. Yeah, this is our slides. So yeah, this thing we discussed. Yeah, checking the temperature, whether it is above the freezing point or below the freezing point. This also we discussed. Yeah, the same program I have written on the whiteboard. So the next thing is our next problem statement. So design an algorithm to find the biggest in two numbers. So finding the biggest number in two numbers. Finding the biggest number in two numbers, it is very, very easy. So now what we have to do, we said we have to find out the biggest number in two numbers. So if I throw that same question towards you, then what will be your response? So I'm asking you, yeah, please find the biggest number for me in two numbers. So then immediately you people will ask, sir, what are those two numbers? Isn't it? Sir, what are those two numbers? Give me those two numbers so that I can judge which one is bigger and which one is smaller for you. So then ultimately what I have to give, I have to give those two numbers for you. So I'm giving the first number as, take my first number 20. Then what you will do? You will allocate some memory inside your brain and you will store that value 50 in that memory location. Isn't it? So 50, in short, you will remember. So we'll not go into that much deep because already we got the clarity. So again and again, I no need to explain that stuff, how you are remembering. So the computer will also do the same thing. It will allocate some memory and it will store that 50 value in it. Okay. Then what I have to do? Yeah, I have to give my second value so that you do the comparison. Isn't it? Now I am giving my second value. So second value is, let us say 13 I am giving. First value was 50 and now I am giving 13. So immediately what you do? You store, you remember the 30 value as well. The 13 value as well. So after remembering the 13, yeah, you do the comparison between that 50 and 13. You do the comparison between 50 and 13. Then you will come to a conclusion that 50 is the bigger value and 13 is the smaller value. Then you will say to me, as an output, as a result, then you say to me, sir, 50 is the biggest value in 13 and 50. So computer will also do the same thing. Computer will have all its options when it will do. So first it will store the first number, then it will store the second number, then it will do the comparison, and if the between number 1 and number 2, if number 1 is big, it will print number 1 as big, or if number 2 is big, it will print number 2 as big. So we have to write the algorithm for that one. So first thing, in order to store two values, the computer will declare two values, isn't it? Computer will declare two values. So let us say those two values are our num1 comma num2. So next thing what it will do, it has to read the values, isn't it? It has to read num1 comma num2. After reading the values, what it has to do? It has to do the comparison between num1 and num2. Let us say like this we have written. Num2 is lesser than num1. It is simply checking whether num1 is lesser than num2 or not. So if num1 is lesser than num2, if that is true, then what it has to do? Print num1 as big. If this is false, we'll do like this. If followed by the condition. If this is false, then we have to put else part. In else part, if num1 is not big, ultimately what will happen? Num2 will become big, isn't it? So that we are writing over here. Num2 is big. So the same thing we'll write in terms of algorithm, okay, so that you will get some idea. So I will go to the board, this one. So I will drag it so that we'll get a new page. Yes, here we'll do that algorithm. So our next algorithm to find the biggest number in two numbers. Biggest in two numbers. Yes. Algorithm to find the biggest in two numbers. Like this. So I've started. My step 1 will be start. Then step 2 will be, we have to declare two memory locations with names num1, num2. Two memory locations we declared. Then do the comparison. Step 3, after declaring, we have to read. We have to take the input. Read num1, num2. Okay, then step 4. Now you do the comparison. If at all, num1 is greater than num2. Less than also you can put, then if else will change. Simply you have to swap the instructions. Okay, so now I'm writing num1 as big. Okay, if this condition is true, then what will happen? If this condition is true, we have to print a statement that num1 is big. Okay, print what we have to print? Num1 is big. Like this we have to print. So if this statement, whatever comparison you are doing, if that is false, then you have to write the false part as well. So that will do in else part, isn't it? Inside else, what we write? We write this statement. Print. If first statement is false, then ultimately the second statement will become true, isn't it? Print num2 is big. So like this. Okay. So now we'll do the step-by-step consideration for this one. Okay. Then the final step is, after printing everything, the final step is, that is step 5. We have to write here. That's step 5. We have to write here. Step 5. Step 5 is stop. That's it. Stop. So now, yes, input of this program, let us assume I'm reading a value inside. First it will declare num1, num2, right? So I'm declaring num1, then I'm declaring num2. Two memory locations. So inside num1, as we said, let us say we are reading 50. And inside num2, let us say we are reading 13. 50, 13. Now, come to your program. First, we started. Then, we declared num1, num2. Then, we read the values inside num1 as 50, inside num2 as 13. Then, we are doing the comparison. If num1 is greater than num2. So, num1 is what? Num1 is 50 and num2 is what? Num2 is 13. So ultimately, which one is greater over here? 50 is greater. So this condition, whatever we are writing over here, this question, whatever we are writing over here, this is true. This condition is true. So now, if the condition is true, what block will be evaluated? Only the true block. Only the true block will be evaluated. This is your true block, so this will be evaluated, and this is your false block, so it will be skipped. The false block will be skipped. Only this one will be evaluated and this one will be skipped. So take another example. Take another input. Take another input with the same algorithm. Okay, input. That means I'm executing I'm processing my algorithm second time. So then num2, this algorithm you can process any number of times. Once written, an algorithm can be processed any number of times. Same way, once you have coded, a program can be executed any number of times with different inputs. A program can be executed any number of times with different input values. Now, here my input values was 50 and 13. Now, I am taking some different input values. Let us say num1, num2. Okay, maybe it is not visible, so I am taking like this. So here, num1 value I am taking, let us say 40, and num2 value I am taking, let us say 70. So now what will happen? Yeah, now come to your program, and here the condition will be changed, isn't it? Here the condition will be changed. So simply delete this one, remove this one. Okay, remove this one also. Then what will happen? Your condition, with your condition, now num1 is 40 and num2 is 70. So we said like this, greater, 40 is greater 70. So this entire thing, this condition, okay, or this question, it is returning false because this statement is false. So it is returning false. So if it is false, ultimately what will happen? Your false block will be evaluated. Only this statement, num2 is big, you will get on the output screen. On the output screen, what you will get? Num2 is big. Like this you will get. Num2 is big. And which one will be skipped? This first statement will be skipped. It will not be considered. It will simply skipped by your control of the program. Okay. So like this, we are writing. Oh, yeah. Many people will get a doubt over here. Sir, how to decide what control structure we have to use in our program? So ultimately, there you need to show your intellectuality. So finding the biggest number, how we can do. Finding the sum of numbers, how we can do. Printing normal statements, how we can do. So what type of control structure we have to use, or we have to go with only sequential operations. So that intellectuality you need to gain, and that how you will gain means when you do more number of examples on algorithms, more number of examples on programs, there you will understand. So don't just get hurry. Sir, in one class only I want to learn everything. It is completely impossible. So whatever we are doing right now, you just try to grasp that stuff and try to understand that stuff. That is more than enough. Slowly, it is something like learning a cycle, isn't it? Is it possible that in only one day or in only one ride you will become master of cycling? No, it is not possible. Definitely you have to do the practice. Again and again you have to do, even if you don't have any work, even if you don't have to go from one point to another point, you have to ride that cycle so that you will become master of that cycling. Master in cycling, isn't it? So in that same way, we have to take silly examples, okay? Examples with minimum complexity, examples with minimum logical stuff, and you have to practice writing the algorithms. That is the only way of learning the algorithms. Okay, and one more thing, we can do that in our classes as well, but we don't have that much of time. So that is the reason I have taken only around 5 to 10 examples, and we are discussing that examples only over here. Hopefully you understood. So we have the limited semester time, and in that semester time only we have to complete so many things. So I need your effort, I need your time, I need your what we call practice in order to become masters in these algorithms, flowcharts, pseudocode to program. Hopefully you understood. So this algorithm, I hope it is clear for you. So how we are finding the biggest number in two numbers? As we said, finding the biggest number in two numbers, we have to dedicate two memory locations inside your computer, and we have to read two values inside those two memory locations. Then we have to frame our control structure if. So that we are doing over here. So if followed by the question, if followed by the condition, and if that condition is true, we are executing or we are evaluating the true block, and we are skipping the false block. And if that condition is false, then we are skipping the true block and going for false block. Hopefully you understood. So after doing all these things, at some point we are stopping the execution of your program, stopping the execution of your algorithm. So let us quickly check another example in these algorithms. So I will go to the slides. Yeah, I have done this one. Yeah, here the algorithm we have done accordingly. So then the next problem statement. See, this is also one of the important problem statement. Design an algorithm to determine whether a student passed in exams or not. Simple problem statement. What we have to do? A student is studying in a particular college. So we have to check whether the student is passed or not. So in order to pass in a particular examination, there will be minimum criterion, isn't it? He has to score a minimum percentage. Then only they will consider that student as a passing student. Okay. So individual subject wise we are not doing over here. So we will take the assumptions over here. Let us say the student is having 6 subjects. Generally that will be the scenario, right? In every semester or in every academic activity, we are going to have a minimum of 5 to 6 subjects. So I am taking the subjects, 6 subjects over here. The student is having how many subjects? So 6 subjects. The student is having 6 subjects. How many subjects? 6 subjects. So I have to read 6 subjects marks. I have to feed 6 subjects marks into the computer. So that 6 subject marks to feed, how many memory locations I need? I need 6 memory locations. So that 6 memory locations, I'm calling it as M1, M2, okay, M3, marks 1, marks 2, marks 3, and so on, marks 6, up to marks 6. Then not individually. We are not evaluating the student individually. Rather, we are calculating the overall percentage, overall average. And based on that average, we are finding whether the student has passed or failed. So now what I have to do? I have to calculate the average. So I need to dedicate another variable to store the average of these things. Okay, to store the average of these things, I need another variable, and that variable I am calling it as AVG, average. Okay, so total how many variables? M1 to M6, 6 variables plus AVG variable, average variable. So total 7 variables. Now I have to find out the average. How I can find out? How? AVG, average, is equals to, I have to add all these subjects and divide with number of subjects. Isn't it? I have to add all these subjects and I have to divide with number of subjects. So what is the total of these subjects? Simply put that one. So M1 plus M2 plus M3 plus M4 plus M5 plus M6 divide with 6 likewise. So now we got the average. So based on the average, our criterion is a student to get pass, he must have to secure a minimum of 60%. 60% and above. 60% and above. That means the student is passed. 60% and above, if he secured, that means the student is passed. If he is having below that, okay, below 60%, so less than 60%, then that means fail. Okay, fail. Fail. If it is greater than 60%, then it is pass. If it is less than 60%, it is failed. So how we can frame the algorithm for this one? So quickly go to this whiteboard. I will do the same thing over here. Okay. Okay, just go to a new page, a fresh page. So now here we'll write the algorithm. Okay. So what I will do, first start writing the algorithm. Algorithm to check whether the student passed in the exam or not. So likewise. So the first step will be, step 1 will be start. Then my step 2 will be, step 2 will be declare the memory locations. Dedicate the memory, computer memory. Declare, what we have to declare? Declare M1 marks 1, subject 1 marks, M2, M3, okay, marks 4, marks 5, marks 6, then average. Okay, so the next thing is step 3. What we have to do? We have to read only the marks. Average we're gonna calculate. Based on the marks, average we're gonna calculate. So we have to read only the marks. So that I am doing. So read M1, comma M2, comma M3, comma M4, comma M5, comma M6. Okay, all these values we are reading. Next thing, step 4. Inside step 4, what we have to do? We have to calculate the average. AVG is equals to M1 plus M2 plus M3 plus M4 plus M5 plus M6. Now, after adding all these, we have to divide with the total number of subjects, that is 6. So that we'll get the average. So the next thing is, we have to frame the control structure. We have to frame the condition. That condition is, if the marks are below 60%, then fail. If the marks are above 60%, then pass. Hopefully you understood. So that is step 5. Step 5, if at all AVG is lesser than 60%. Lesser than 60%. Then what we are saying, if the average is lesser than 60%, then what we are saying, the student is failed, isn't it? The student is failed. So that will print over here. Okay, simply print fail. Yeah, the program will, if the average goes, if you have entered all the subject marks and if the average is below 60%, then what will happen? You will get fail statement on the output screen. Then another one, if the average is above 60%, that is in the else part, that is in the false block. In the else part, we'll write that one. So if the student's average is more than 60% or greater than 60%, then print as pass. Okay, print as pass. So this you put over here. That's it, right? So the last statement after printing all these things, the last statement will be step 6. That is stop. So like this, we can write the algorithm to check whether the student is passed in the exam or failed. Hopefully you understood. Simple algorithm, simple instructions we have written over here. So try to analyze. We'll start the exam. We'll start the algorithm. Okay. Then okay, we have to start the algorithm. Then declare M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, M6, M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, M6. So let us assume, read the values then. Let us assume M1 is some 60, M2 is some 70, M3 80. So likewise, we store all the values into this M1, M2, M3, M4, M5, M6. Then we have to calculate average. So that average anyhow, if you calculate, you will get, it will be more than 60 only, because all values are more than 60. So average will be more than 60 only. So here that average will become more than 60. So this condition will become false. This condition will become false. So ultimately what will happen? You will get the false block. You will get the false block, that is pass. Hopefully you understood. So if all values are below 60, let us assume I am taking the second type of input, that is 30, 40, okay, 20, 10, another 30, another 25. Likewise. So now all the values are below 60. So ultimately your average will also become below 60. So then the condition will become true and only the true block will be evaluated. So the student will become failed. Student will become failed. So likewise you can frame the algorithm, you can write the algorithm to check whether the student is passed in the exam or failed. So the next problem statement, the last problem statement, so design an algorithm to find whether the given number is even or odd. It is also one of the important algorithm. So simply what we have to do, first of all, I'm asking you to check whether the given number is even or odd. So immediately your question will be, sir, give me the number, isn't it? So then I will give the number, you will remember. The same thing the computer will do. So how many numbers I have to give in order to check whether a number is even or odd? Only one number, isn't it? So only one memory location is enough. So we have to declare a number, let us say num. Okay? Num, only one memory location. Then we have to read the value. We have to read the value, read num. So let us say I'm reading the number value as 11. Okay, now we have to check whether this 11 is even or odd. Being a human being, by seeing that number only we can say it is an odd number. But for a computer, it will not tell whether this number is even or odd. We have to give a processing, we have to give a calculation so that to find whether the given number is even or odd. So I told you, yeah, generally for smaller numbers, okay, to some extent we can perform, but for bigger numbers, what is the logic to check whether the given number is even or odd? We have to divide that number with 2, isn't it? We have to divide that number with 2 and we have to see whether we are getting the remainder as 0 or remainder as 1. If the remainder is 0, then the number is even. If the remainder is odd, if the remainder is 1, then the number is odd number. So this logic we follow, isn't it? This logic we follow to check whether the given number is even or odd. So the same thing we do. So that is, yeah, remainder to get. Normal division will give you the coefficient, isn't it? So to get the remainder, we have to do the modulo division. In your first algorithm only, I have explained you the modulo division operation, isn't it? So 11 modulo division, so sorry, not 11, num modulo division 2, num modulo division 2. If this value goes to 0, then the number is even, isn't it? Then the number is even. The value when it goes to 0, when the remainder is 0, because this modulo division will give you the remainder. So next thing is num modulo division 2 equals to 1, then it is odd. Then it is odd number. So the same logic we use inside our program, and then we see how we can frame the algorithm. So the last type of algorithm, yeah, I will start now. So first I will take, yeah, the title of the algorithm, that is algorithm, okay, algorithm to check whether the given number is even or odd. Okay, this I have to do, whether the given number is even or odd, this I have to do. So the first thing, step 1, as usual, we have to start. Step 1 is start. Then step 2, collect the memory location. So that is declare num. Only one number is enough. No other storing the result, no other calculations, nothing. Only one number, reading one number is enough. Then step 3 will be read num. After reading the number, your step 4 should be, yes, frame the control structure. That is, if at all num is greater than, no, num modulo division, right? Num modulo division 2 is equals to 0. So if this statement, is true, inside the true block, what we have to print? Num is an even number. Num is an even number. Num is an even number. So that is print num is an even number. So like this. So if this condition is false, that means if num modulo division 2 is giving 1, so if this is false, then what will happen? We have to go for else block, isn't it? We have to go for else block. So inside the else block, we'll put the statement. What statement will write? Print num is an odd number. Num is an odd number. Then finally we conclude with the last statement, that is step 5 as stop. That's it. So step 5 as stop. So now process this one. I'm taking the marker. Okay, process this one now. So let us assume, yeah, the algorithm will start over here. Okay. So the algorithm will start over here. Just give me. Something fishy has happened. Just give me some moments. Okay. Okay. So now, yeah, here it should come like stop. Okay. So we are starting from here. Start, then declaring num. Okay. Declaring num. Read num. Let us assume we are reading the value like 11. Okay. Then num modulo division 2. What is this value? Num modulo division 2 is 1. Isn't it? So when you divide 11 with 2, 2 5s, 10. You will get the remainder as 1. So because the remainder is 1, and which is not equals to 0, but we are saying 1 equals to 0. The statement is false. The statement is false. So which block will be evaluated? The false block will be evaluated. This is your true block and this is your false block. So true block, in this case, true block will be skipped and false block will be evaluated. So you will get, okay, on the output screen what you will get? Print num is an odd number. So you will get num is an odd number. Num is an odd number. Like this you will get the statement. Num is an odd number. Take another example. Take another input value. Now this time input value I am taking num like 60. 60 I am taking. So that thing, when you divide 60 with 2, when you divide 60 with 2, what you will get? 2 30s 60. So you will get the remainder as 0. So 0 equals to 0. So then the condition will become true in this case. We are saying 0 equals to 0. Isn't it? 0 equals to 0 means what will happen? Because this value, just now we calculated, it is 0. 0 equals to 0 means condition true. So only the true block will be evaluated and false block will be skipped. So on the output screen, what you will get? On the output screen, you will get num is an even number. Num is an even number. This statement you will get on the output screen. Hope you understood this one. Hope you understood this one, and understanding, as we are doing, you too have to do, and understanding is very, very, very important. And this is as the first step in your program development stage, program development steps. This algorithm is your first step, so you need to have the thorough knowledge of this one. Okay, hopefully you will do the practice at home. You will follow my videos. For your doubt clarification, you can post the comments, you can post the personal messages. Okay, so try to follow the stuff as we are discussing. Don't wait for the exams. Okay, tomorrow there is exam means today we'll learn. It is not like that. You are in the first year and this subject, it is very new to you. Day-to-day practice only give proficiency in this coding, in this programming. Okay, hopefully you follow, hopefully you do the same. Thank you very much, students.